euthanasia is really a gesture of compassion. No one is supposed to suffer. We're not supposed to suffer. So why the fact that we keep them going for a long time thanks to medicine, which is great, but an animal in nature, when he's ready to go, he's going to just go on his own and let himself die. An animal that is emotionally tied to a human being, it's more difficult because he's tied by the emotions. And then there's also the medical. So, when they're suffering, it's really a gesture of compassion to let them to go without suffering. It's much better for them for after. And people know it. People say, I don't know when, what am I going to do? I have no idea. But it's not true. They do know. They don't really need a communicator to tell them, especially as a communicator could get it wrong. I've seen a lot of mistakes happening with people. So I think between the vet and the person, they know when it's the right time. Because the animal always says goodbye. Mm-hmm. Because they know.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Laila del Monte with us on the show today. Laila is considered to be one of the top animal communicators in all of Europe and even had a documentary made about her. I'm interested to find out if Laila was born an animal communicator or if she learned how to do it. I also want to find out about her techniques and what she suggests we can do to better communicate with our animals. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now let's go chat with Laila. Laila, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today.
Me too. I'm really, really happy to see you.
Thank you. Were you able to communicate with animals as a child?
Yes. So I never put the term communication because I didn't know that term. But I was raised on an island in Spain, in Formentera, where there was a lot of animals, very, old-fashioned, primitive island. And I could hear thoughts, I could hear sentences, I would receive pictures. So yes, I guess that's communication.
You could hear thoughts from what, the cows and the sheep and stuff? Or what were you hearing
yes.
thoughts from home?
Goats, sheep, donkeys, dogs, cats. And yes, I would hear full sentences, like how they were feeling and what was going on for them. So it's more like an auditive ability.
Give us an example of something that you heard. What, did you hear, well, I'm cold or I'm hungry or?
Yes. So when I was a child, it was more simple than when what I hear now, because now I work with people who call me with major problems, behavioral problems, illness problems, whatever the problems are. But when I was a child, it was more like I'm tired, it's too hot, or I can't walk, or I'm not happy, I'm thirsty, things like that. It was more those type of sentences, more simple.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did you do about it? Did you bring them water?
Unfortunately, there wasn't much I could do. I did the most I can, but it was a very primitive island, and the animals weren't very, very well treated there, because they had animals for usage. So I would complain to my parents, who tried to do something, and then I would talk to the lady, but they thought I was crazy. They were peasants. So for them, animals didn't think or emotions or any of that. So that became my mission later on in life.
Oh my gosh. How old were you when this was going on?
So I was about 6 when we first went. I was born in America. Then we went to France when I was 4. And then we started going to Spain when I was 6. So around 6 years old, I started.
And so then how did you get from that to what you're doing now as a profession? Did you just immediately, once you grew up, decide, oh, I want to talk to animals and make a business out of it? Or tell us about your journey?
No, I mean, the idea of business was very far removed from my mind. I came from a very literate family, intellectuals, literate, so they wanted me to become a teacher and all of that. But my passion was dancing. So I did become a dancer. I became a flamenco dancer against all odds, because I was told you never dance, you can't dance. I had knee problems and things like that. And then I had a lot of miracles in my life. I had a lot of healing miracles and a lot of major, major spiritual experiences, which actually are the ones that brought me to this. Because it's the way it started is I was doing healings for people in those days. So my dance studio used to be transformed into a healing studio. And that's a long time ago. That's over 25 years ago. And this lady, an American lady, she asked me about her cat. And so I told her a bunch of stuff about her cat. And then she started telling other people, and that's how it happened.
Oh my gosh. All right. So you can't just give us the tease of miracles happened and healings happened without giving us a couple of examples, please, of those miracles and healing that led you
You
on your
like miracles?
trajectory. Yeah, yeah. Share some of them with us.
So, well, basically, if miracles, there was a lot, but let's say not the first one, let's get to the last ones. I was a dancer and I had a lot of knee problems. I had issues with meniscus, ligaments, tendons, all of that. So I reached a point where I could barely dance. I was teaching sitting in a chair and, doing my arms, sitting in a chair. And someone told me about these spirit doctors. So I went all the way to Mexico and I had a surgery, psychic surgery. And it changed my whole life. That was the beginning of a lot of other things that happened. That was the beginning.
Tell us about the psychic surgery. You keep dropping these like teases here. And so I'm going, okay, wait, tell me more. Tell me more.
So, I mean, I usually don't talk about this much because I'm scared because, I was raised in Europe where you just don't talk about those things. But, well, it's a psychic surgery. It was with a little scalpel and it was a surgery. But without it's difficult I'm afraid, to talk about it. But I was back to dancing a week later. And I was told by the top surgeons, we have to do introspective surgery, which means they have to go in and look. And so then I said, well, what does that mean after? So they said, well, either you'll be worse or you'll be better or it will be the same. So I said, well, what does worse mean? What does worse possibly could mean? Does it mean I'll never dance again? And he said, yes. That was the top surgeon in knee surgery in Los Angeles, Dr. Fox, a wonderful man. So I said, okay, well, if it means worse, if there's a possibility of being worse, then I'm not going to do it. Yeah. So then I went to Mexico. I was basically healed. And I went back to dancing a week later. And after that, I was on big stages, Hollywood Bowl, Mock Taper Theater, big theaters, Fall Theater. My life was dancing.
Wow.
I loved it. It was fantastic. And we brought over flamenco singers from Spain, gypsy singers, because it was a big event.
My
Yeah.
goodness. Wow.
Yes, it was wonderful. And I wasn't even terrified. Usually, I did have a lot of stage fright in those days, but it's so big and you can't see anyone anyhow. So you're not even scared, actually. I just enjoyed it.
Let's go back to the animals and communicating with animals. Do we all communicate with our pets and other animals and we just aren't aware that we're doing it?
That's a great question. So I'm convinced we are. I'm convinced that there's a link, there's a telepathic link, there's a link of empathy. There's a link, I call it like the golden thread that links our heart to the heart of the animal. And yes, absolutely. It's just that one can reach a higher levels of more awareness, which would be, I know they call it psychic, I'm a bit wary of that word, but one can go further. But everyone still has it. Yes.
So when we see that our pet is seemingly in pain or doesn't feel well or something, and we say, well, Fluffy, what's the matter? And then
Yes.
we have a thought in our head, most of us just discount it. We don't pay attention to it.
Exactly.
What advice do you have for just people in their everyday lives who haven't
Yes.
learned how to develop their intuitive and telepathic
Yeah.
skills?
Yes. I think it's about getting to that space inside, that silence, and that listening. So people, they don't have to meditate. They don't have to do Qigong, Tai Chi, all these things. They don't have to. But it's a certain space that one reaches of just pure listening. Just really being in the presence of the other one and listening. And it's listening with your heart, really. Without the mind interfering, which is not easy for anybody. And I think everyone knows inside what's going on. Everyone knows. The heart knows,
And I always say it's that first thing that comes in your head. Boom. As fast as you can
Exactly.
snap your fingers. And sometimes it's coming in before your thought is even finished being thought.
Exactly.
Do you find that as
Exactly.
well? How do
Absolutely.
how do we
Yes.
learn to trust that? And if there headed towards the vets, what do they say? Oh, I just have a thought that maybe it's their heart or their liver or something.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think people are reluctant to say something because they don't want to be seen as being crazy?
Yes. Well, especially in Europe. I mean, there it's
What?
like
Tell
very
us about
Cartesian.
yeah, answer that question, then I want to get into the Europe thing
Yes.
in a minute.
So basically, what I noticed, at least with my students, that most of the times the first impression that they get, the first thought they get, is the correct one. And yes, they are afraid to say it, and they're usually afraid. They're also afraid of going against like veterinarian things. So they're going to maybe trust something that they're being told that might not necessarily be the truth because they're taught not to. But I'm convinced that everyone has this knowledge inside of them. I'm just sure. And the only little thing to do is to just bring it out. That's it. To go into that silence. That's it.
So when you talk about that we're taught to do what the experts say, even if it doesn't feel right, how does one
Yes.
overcome that? How does a person get to the place where they just say, "Mm, I, I don't think I'm going to do that," like you did with the knee surgery? You're
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
this doesn't feel right to
Yes.
me. What advice
Yes.
do you have for somebody who's in that position, whether it's with their pet or whether it's with themselves or another human loved one?
Exactly, exactly. It's for most people, it's very difficult because there's the whole structure of the education, of the way that they're taught to be, and they're not used to listening. I mean, it is true that many women have it more, like access to the intuition. And I don't think it's just because they're men or women, it's just because maybe they're more allowed to do that. But like I noticed, almost all my students, almost all my clients, I noticed they have that knowledge inside of them. And it's just that then they don't take the time to listen. But it's there. Either it's a picture, or it's a thought, or it's a feeling, or it's a word. It could be anything. A smell sometimes, but they just don't take the time. They discard it. You see?
Do
'Cause- yeah.
other animals know when their buddies are in trouble? Like if they've got a health issue or something like that? When I was hearing a story from a client that she was taking her dog to have her dog put down because the dog had some kind of medical stuff and was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And her other dog wouldn't get out of her bed, like
Yeah.
wouldn't come near him, just knew something was up.
Yes.
What have you experienced along those lines where animals know when they're, what do you call them? Their colleague
Yes.
animals or
Yes.
other animals or
The
buddy animals,
friend animals.
friend
Yes.
animals.
They
There you go.
Yes. They completely know. They completely know. They know way before us when something's going to happen. So of course they're not veterinarians. They're not going to diagnose. And they're not going to say, oh, well, that is the C word or the mass or the this or the that. They're not going to, or the kidneys. They're not going to diagnose, but they know perfectly well that something's wrong. And they know exactly when an animal is close to departure. Because, I mean, here I have a really beautiful case. It was a horse, and so he was like at the end, but he was still standing. He wasn't even on the ground. And so they called the veterinarian, and all the other horses in the field, they all came and they surrounded him in a circle. That what happened in France, a beautiful story, before the veterinarian even came. So they just knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen so many cases like that. It's just so beautiful, you know?
I read an article one time, and actually I used it in a blog about how horses, this person called it, they breathe each other's air when a horse is
Yes,
dying, and they'll come up and they'll put their noses together, and it's almost like they're saying goodbye. Have you seen that?
absolutely.
Wild horses apparently do that. Do
Yes, yes.
domesticated horses do that as well?
I've seen that if they're able to be close to each other, most like in the physical space, like if they're not stuck in a stall or somewhere in another field, they're able to get close to it. They do get close. Whereas with dogs and cats, the tendency is the opposite. They separate
Why do
and they
you think
go
that is?
somewhere else.
Why was that?
I think because I think maybe perhaps, I mean, it doesn't make much sense because horses are also prey animals, but the going idea is that an animal that is going to be going in a group or in a tribe, better word, if one is sick or is vulnerable, then they have to separate so that they don't make the group get slower. that it's going to be in danger. But with horses, which is strange, I mean, they are prey animals and they move in group, but I noticed the opposite. They kind of get together when there's a departure, same as elephants. They do that.
I
So
never
they
thought
all have different ways.
I never thought of horses as prey animals. What do you mean they're
Oh,
prey animals? What do they prey?
yes. Oh, they're considered prey animals because like, pumas or mountain lions are going to, especially in the wild, would attack them. So in the horse world, yeah, they're considered like prey animals.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're the prey. Somebody's coming after them.
Yes, someone is coming after them. Yes, sorry, I didn't express that right. Yes, sorry. Sometimes my English is not perfect.
No,
I get
it's
things
fine, but
wrong.
I'm thinking, so they're animals of prey. They're not the ones
Of
that are
prey.
preying.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes,
That
yes,
makes more
yes,
sense. I'm
yes.
thinking, what do horses go after in the wild? Maybe they eat hay and grass and stuff. Maybe
Yeah.
bugs that I don't
No,
know. Yeah.
no, they never
Makes
hurt
sense though.
others. No.
But the dogs and the cats obviously are descendants of wild wolves and
Yes,
dogs and
yes,
the
yes,
cat
y-
family, so they would be, to your point, in a pack, and
yes,
if one is sick and they're slowing down the pack, I can see
yes,
that. Yeah.
yes. I mean, I wouldn't say this is the ultimate truth. It's a going theory. I'm not sure this is the truth because there's so many possibilities, in life of ideas and thoughts. But they do that. They usually separate themselves from another animal.
That
Yeah,
makes sense, and I know that they can go separate themselves from their families when they're wanting to die, but
absolutely.
they're den animals, especially the dogs, right?
Yes,
So,
yes,
I know I had a friend one time whose schnauzer got lost. They had
yeah,
a lake house, and the schnauzer was out doing its business, and it always came back, but it never came back, and so my girlfriend was having me scan where the dog was, and the dog had
yeah.
died, and
Wow, yeah,
so we looked it up, and that was a thing. I had never thought about it before,
yeah.
that apparently dogs will, if they have the ability, they will go off on their own
Yes,
in the
very,
pack.
very often. If they have the ability, sometimes they can't. They're in a house and situations, so they can go hide under the bed. But other animals don't do that. Some they are going to die in the arms of the person. It's very specific. It depends. It depends. But in general, the tendency would be to separate, even emotionally. It's almost as if they cut the emotional cord with a human being just before.
Mm.
It's very strange.
Oh my
Yeah, it's
goodness.
like they have to go alone.
While we're on that topic, and then we'll move on to something more joyful. I have clients ask me a lot and people that call into my show, Lila, and they'll say, "How will I know when it's time to euthanize my pet? And
Yes,
how do you feel about euthanizing pets
yes,
and other
yes,
animals?"
yes. So, yes, so unfortunately, I don't have the book on that in English. I have it in French, Spanish, and Italian with like a lot of examples. But I really believe that I never believed that before. This is, I learned it along the way that euthanasia is really a gesture of compassion. So it's not my words, it's the words of the beings of light who told me that. They said it's a gesture of compassion because no one is supposed to suffer. We're not supposed to suffer. So why the fact that we keep them going for a long time, thanks to medicine, medicine, which is great. But an animal in nature, when he's ready to go, he's going to just go on his own and let himself die. But an animal that is emotionally tied to a human being, it's more difficult because he's tied by the emotions. And then there's also the medical. So, when they're suffering, it's really a gesture of compassion to let them to go without suffering. It's much better for them for after. And people know it. People say, I don't know when, what am I going to do? I have no idea. But it's not true. They do know. They don't really need a communicator to tell them, especially as a communicator could get it wrong. I've seen a lot of mistakes happening with people. So I think between the vet and the person, they know when it's the right time. Because the animal always says goodbye. Because they know. They know already.
My daughter-in-law, Dr. Mal, she believes that euthanasia is a compassionate thing
It
as well.
is.
Yeah,
It really
and
is.
it's so
Yeah.
hard. I've had to euthanize the dog, and it's just like just to rip your heart right out of your
Oh, it's
chest.
awful, awful. It's so painful. I mean, I've seen people, and this is like really 25 years of clients telling me they always say it, and they don't dare to say it. And they say, it was harder for me to say goodbye to my dog or my cat or my horse than my mother, my sister, my brother, my husband, my wife. And they don't dare to say it, but they still end up saying it. It's just the hardest thing.
It is so hard. Why is that so hard? I have so many clients and I've been there too. It's just, I think it's because, especially animals that are in the house, you're with them all the time. Like your husband
Yes.
and you separate during the day to go to work or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But the cat or the dog or whatever is with you when you're in the house like the whole
Yeah.
time. And
Exactly.
and
Yes.
and if you have a loved one in the family who passes, most of the time they don't live with you. So
Yeah.
you're not with them
Exactly.
24/7. Am I thinking clearly
Yeah.
on that?
Yes, I completely agree. And it's also it's absolutely that. And it's also this unconditional love that no human being gives you that type of love. I mean, human beings can give you wonderful love, but that unconditional, it's not there. And then there's also the presence that they have because it fills the space. And we only realize that when they're gone. There's this horrible void, and we don't realize while they're there, but they have an incredible energy that fills everything. It's present, beautiful presence. Yeah.
When I talk with animal spirits, so my client wants to talk to their deceased dog or pet or
Yes.
horse or whatever,
Yes.
many, many times they will say, "Get another pet." And my client will say, "Well, I can't. I don't know that I could ever have another pet." And their cat or their dog's spirit is saying, "No, get another pet because it's gonna bring joy into your life. It's gonna help you with the grieving." And at the time, the person with whom I'm working will say, "Oh, I just don't know that I could do that." But their pet spirit is just really urging them to do that. Have you found the
Yes.
same thing?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what's like incredible is there's two things that I've noticed that can happen. So the person is saying, "No, I'm not ready. I can't." And then all of a sudden, there's a cat at the doorstep or a dog. Like, wow, this is really strange. Could that be a coincidence? So it's usually sent from the other side, from the groups. And then there's another thing I noticed, and I finally managed to like get it clear in my head what this was, because I've been noticing it for years and I've never been able to put words to it. And I call it a transfer of energy, which means that all of a sudden an animal is going to do the same thing that the one that left used to do. And it's usually things that are very particular that usually they don't do. And I call it a transfer of energy. It usually doesn't last long. It's a few days, and it's just so that people recognize the soul or the beingness of the other one. It's not a reincarnation. It's just as if they're transferring something. It's very strange, but I've had a lot of cases like that.
Do animals
Yeah.
reincarnate, period, and do they reincarnate to the same owners?
Yes. So, okay. So here I'm not a big spiritual master or anything like that. I'm just little Laila. So I'm not going to say that I have the truth. But from what I have experienced, it seems to me that yes, they definitely reincarnate. They don't necessarily reincarnate in this dimension. It could be other dimensions. And it's not necessarily into the same person in this lifetime, at least. Because when they've accomplished something, let's say they come to a person who, let's say the person is very unwell, very depressed, very anxious, difficult life, and the animal comes and helps this person, then they're not going to come back in the same lifetime for that person because they've accomplished what they have accomplished. But it's different each time.
That's a great answer. I never thought about it that way, but I get the same thing that you do. It's been
Yeah.
my experience, same thing that they do reincarnate, but they don't necessarily reincarnate back to the same family. And I never thought about it before, but that makes total sense that it's
Yes.
because whatever their role was as that
Exactly.
person's guide, basically, they have accomplished it by the time they pass. Oh, beautifully said.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very specific. I mean, some animal, I've seen cases. I've so many people have told me if it hadn't been for my dog or my cat, I wouldn't have been able to live. I mean, even I said it during COVID. I mean, it was horrible. And then all of a sudden, this incredible cat comes in my life. I mean, I did pray and ask. So I got. They sent me animals, not anyone else, but animals. And I said, he saved me. Saved me. I save him. You think you're saving them, but in the end, they save you much more. Yeah.
I love that. Do animals reincarnate as humans, or do humans reincarnate as animals?
Okay, well, that's a big one. So, of course, I'm going to go against certain religions like Buddhism that do talk about reincarnation in different forms. But from what I have experienced, and it's only personal experience, I don't know anything. It seems to me that animals don't reincarnate as human beings, and human beings as animals. Now, are there possible exceptions? I think there are. There could be some exceptions. Maybe if a being needs to take a certain form for a certain reason, then maybe that being could take a form as an animal for a certain reason, usually for helping someone. It could be. But in general, from what I've seen, no. So I know I'm going against Buddhism, which I really like, but it's not what I've seen.
I agree.
But
Yeah, I have
oh,
experienced the same thing.
okay. Oh, well,
What's
yeah.
what's the being that's like part man, part horse? What's that called? I'm blanking on the name.
Yeah, centaurs. Wait, centaur in French. Wait,
Yes. Yeah,
I know because I did
centaur.
cards on those.
Centaur.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, centaur.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
So,
yes,
and I know they're considered to be mythological
yes,
beings, but I
yes.
find that so much of the legendary mythological stuff is based on reality. Have you
Oh
found the
my
same
God.
thing?
Oh, I love that you're saying that. I love that you're saying that. So I adore mythology since I'm a kid, and I'm pretty sure I know those beings exist, whatever dimension they exist in. And so I actually made 3 sets of cards on mythology, on mythological animals. 3 sets. I have one here. The others are in the bookstore, bookshelf, but they're all on mythology. So all kinds of all kinds of different traditions. And because I love it so much, and I do completely believe that they exist. Completely. And maybe not in our dimension here, but yeah, I'm sure.
Well, and I think it was depicted really beautifully in the Harry Potter movies.
Absolutely.
When they were in the woods
Yes.
and they could see the centaur and they could see the unicorns and other animals,
Yes.
but
Yes.
they had their magical spidey senses tuned on, and they were only able to see them in the woods. I don't know if that's because that's the only place they were, but the thought that I got when watching those movies was they were able to sense things in the woods because the woods were kind of a magical vibration that they could tune into. And so that makes sense that they could be current, but they're just in a different reality that one can sense based on what their vibrational level is.
Exactly. I think we wouldn't be able to perceive them on a daily basis, but the fact that it exists and in so many different countries, there's always mythological animals in so many countries and so many different cultures. So there has to be a reason for that. It's not just someone who just decided to invent something out of the blue.
Mhm. Can you give us some other examples of mythological animals in different countries?
Well, of course now whenever people ask me stuff, I'm never going to remember. I would have to open my cards. But in the Hindu culture, all the deities, they're all linked to an animal. So for example, Durga is linked to the tiger. Ganesh, of course, which everyone knows, is in the form of an elephant, but his vehicle is a mouse. So in every single country, there's in Georgia, they have like a Georgia of all people don't think of Georgia, but they have like a mythical being that's like a rabbit, that's like a magical being. Then, of course, in Native American cultures, they have the, how do you say, corbeau, the raven.
Mhm.
And so then there's other cultures where, and even in Native American cultures, they have animals that are mixed, different animals together that form one animal. So you have it in all traditions. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. I did tons of research. That's why I made those cards, but they're only in French, so I'm sorry. But I did it so to bring back mythology, because it's such a beautiful thing, mythology, and we forget about it.
Well, the language thing is really not an issue anymore because you can translate it on your phone. You type
It
it
is
in,
true.
and then it's an
Yes.
instant translation. So
Yes,
I
and
don't think that.
it's all about the images, really.
Yeah.
And the person who does the images for the cards, she's American. She was my dance student when she was 14. I took her under my wing, and she became my illustrator for all the cards. Beautiful person.
And so on the
Yes,
cards, you've got the picture and what the name is, and then do you have what
yes.
there's can you show us
I
one?
can show
Give us
you
an
some.
example?
So I have a ton. I have the others in the book, so I can go get them. But I have 4 sets on mythology. So the French, they do it very pretty, very pretty. They make the French editor, like, it's beautiful the way they have like a little golden bag. I
Of
love it. It's
course
so
they
pretty.
do. That's the design capital of the
The
world. Yeah.
French art.
So just pick
So
one out
here,
of the deck and tell us what the message is and what the
let
animal
me
is.
pick you one. Oh, so here, wait, there's so many.
No,
Let me
just
find
pick
you a
it
pretty.
randomly. Just like,
Randomly?
yeah.
Do you want the tiger?
No, 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 no.
Budipalian.
I want you to
Budipalian tiger
shuffle them or do whatever and then
shuffle.
pick one blind and
Okay.
just see what comes out.
Here's Pan, Greece. Greece. Pan, so he's the god of the forest. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to find some that people would relate to, a culture they could understand. Here's a Raven, a Native American.
Yeah. And what does Raven tell us?
So Raven, if I can remember now, of course I'm not going to remember thing because you're asking me. But this is my first set, which I did many years ago, so I can't remember it. And the pictures are much nicer. But the raven, I think, is he the one who's the trickster? They have different types of raven. So it's I hope I'm not getting it wrong. So Native American culture, if I'm getting it wrong, please forgive me. But it has a lot to do with mischievous, but also with knowledge at the same time. The raven. So a bit like tricking, but also knowledge. So many different aspects. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating to look up the spiritual significance of different animals. I had a client recently that had a dream, and there was a great big alligator in the dream.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
so I was doing an instant replay and we were talking about it. And she said, God, it just scared the daylights out of me. And then this calm came over me. And I thought, this alligator's here to protect me. So we looked up the significance and it was protection. And I forget what else. And I said, do you feel like you need protection? And she said, yeah, my husband just passed 3 months ago.
Oh,
And so this alligator, she believed, appeared to her in the dream, and it was a sign from her husband's spirit saying, "You're protected. You
wow.
don't need to worry about it."
Oh,
Isn't that beautiful?
that's beautiful. I love that. Wow. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
talk to other animals too, like bugs and ants and
Not really. I mean, when there used to be a lot of in my dance studio, I used to have spiders would come in. So I was like, okay, you have guys, tell them I can't have more than 4 spiders in my studio at a time because my students freak out. So, and especially in California, where there's possibility of getting black widows and all. So there was 4 were allowed, but that's about it. If not, I usually do bigger animals. So I've done all kinds of animals because I've been called from parks, national parks, and I work a lot with rescues. So I've done all kinds of animals, but I'm not necessarily a bug person who talks to bugs necessarily. There's other people maybe who do that.
yeah. I talk to them
Yeah.
when I'm catching them and putting them outside.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
was
like,
like,
"Okay, buddy, here, I'm gonna take you outside. Everything's gonna be okay." Yeah. Yeah. But I don't
yes.
say, "What are you doing in my house?" I figure my house is in his territory.
Exactly. Exactly.
You say animals often take on the physical pains and negative emotional experiences of the human beings in their lives. Tell
Oh,
us about
wow.
that.
Yes. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a big question. So, okay, that's a big question. So, um, there's 2 things. There's one thing where I've noticed there can be parallels. So, for example, this was an American man, and he was going to have back surgery, and his cat had back pain. Okay. Then there was the horse that had an abscess, and the woman had the same abscess exactly on the same leg, on her thighs. So I've seen tons of cases like that. So I call them the parallel cases. It doesn't mean they take on, but for some strange reason, something appears similar to the human being. Now, I don't believe, I know that people say it. So I don't believe that, like, for example, let's say a dog has cancer and people say, why? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? Is it my emotions? Is this and is it that? And they give me all these theories. And I don't believe that. I say, no, I don't believe animals take on like major illnesses like that, like especially like kidney failure or cancers or or lupus or, big illnesses. I don't believe that they take it on for the person. But if a person is completely stressed and or very negative or very depressed or has tons of conflicts in their inner life or outer life, that is going to affect the terrain. And so it could allow the possibility that the animal could get sick because the terrain of the stress is there. You see, it's a very subtle subject.
So if somebody is sick, how do they or can they prevent their animal from taking on or from mimicking whatever that illness is? Is there something that you teach when somebody's going through an illness or a difficult time so that the animal doesn't suffer as well?
Yes. So, I mean, I know you know this, I'm just repeating it, but animals, of course, they go. Like the cat is going to go sit exactly where the person is ill, or like people who do therapy. In the days I used to do healing for people, I used to have my cat, they always wanted to come in. And I would say, no, you're not allowed in the healing studio because I didn't want them to take on the stuff of the people. So they do take on. I think it's a matter of awareness of the person to explain, I'm going through this. I don't want you to take it on, even though they do take on a certain amount. But it doesn't mean they're going to develop an illness after. But it's that level of consciousness of being able to tell them, even just aloud. You don't have to communicate for that. You just say, I don't want you to take this on for me. I'm going through this. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get out of it, or whatever the human being is going to say. But don't take it for me.
Is that what I have a graduate of my class that was involved in horses helping to heal, and it was uncanny. She sent me all these videos and the other people that were in her class where this horse, let's say a patient or a client was laying on a massage table and they had lung cancer, and the horse would come up and it would put its nose right on this person's lungs. I mean, they know,
Absolutely.
and
They
they
know
would
exactly.
and they would
Yeah.
be there for a while, and then there would be a healing that would occur. Is that animal then is that a situation where that horse was taking on that woman's lung cancer or was just working on healing it?
Yes. No, they weren't taking it on, but they know exactly where something is wrong. So of course they're not vets, they're not going to diagnose, but they really have this instinct that's unbelievable. That's why you get animals that can, like if people, I knew this woman in sorry, I'm going to divert to 2 minutes, 2 seconds, but she had epileptic fits. I met her in Northern California, and she had this dog that wasn't trained in anything, and he would warn her in advance about the epileptic fit. So you have a lot of animals like that, especially dogs. But even cats, they know exactly where to go and sense it. So it doesn't mean that they're taking on, but the energy is trying to relieve something. Let's say, I'm not going to use the word healing because it's a big word, but the energy is going to try to transform, let's say,
Dissipate it.
something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, and you hear about the dogs that can be around their owners, and when they have cancer and it's undetected, they don't know that they have it yet, and the dog keeps smelling like their knee or something where the cancer is because they're picking up that there's a different smell.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Because everything has a frequency. And for animals, they can actually smell it, even the frequency. And you don't even know how many clients I've had. I mean, those are mainly in Europe, so I don't know so much in America, but how many women have told me, because my cat was sitting always at the same place, I ended up going to the doctor on me, and they detected this and that.
Mhm.
So many
I've
people, they
heard
got
that too.
detected from yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. You do healings on animals too. Tell us about that. Yeah, tell us how that works.
So that's my favorite of everything. So i- um, I work with so those spirit, that I talked about. Eventually, they ended up giving me a group. It's very difficult to talk about this. I'm always terrified to talk about it. And then there's other groups. So So maybe we'll go into that another time. But I do healing. I often collaborate with vets in different countries, and it's prayer visualization. I've been doing it for many years, 25 years more. And we have beautiful stories, beautiful results. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's just to help them to get to the next step, which would be going to another dimension. But it's what I love the most. It's the most difficult of everything I do, but it's what I love the most. Because when a horse can start galloping again, it's like my heart is bursting with joy, I love it. Yeah.
Well, let's go down the rabbit hole of why are you so afraid to talk about this? You mentioned a couple of times that in Europe it's not discussed. What are they, jail people that talk about energy healing? Or I mean,
Oh,
what's the deal with that? What are you afraid of?
yes. Oh, I'm terrified. So I have some past life going on about stuff like that. But I mean, in Europe, really, you can't really talk in public about things like that, like to do with healing. They really try to bring you down very fast. And yes, some natural people who work with natural medicine, so not in the animal world, but in the human world, there's doctors that, they've been jailed, they've been persecuted. There's a lot of stories in Europe, up to the point that I have friends who are healers and who decided to go move to Switzerland. It's tough. It's tough there. So there is that fear. There is that fear. And that's why when I started talking about animal communication, I never talked about anything spiritual. I never mentioned spiritual experiences. Like I was very careful, also because I didn't want it to get discredited, because it's a very Cartesian world, and the horse world is very Cartesian. And right away you're considered to be a sect. So I was like, I had people saying I was a sect just because I like to wear colors. I like colors. And just because I was wearing a violet scarf, or 5 people meditating together, that's it, you're a sect. I mean, it's tough
Is that why
over
you live
there.
in America?
Oh, it's much better here, especially California. Like you never get that feeling here. You just don't get it.
Yeah.
You feel much more free, and you can speak, and But I speak a lot most of my work is with Europe.
Well, the interesting thing about that too is I think that we as Americans take that for granted, and
Yes.
it's not even in my thought purview that that kind of censoring is going on in Europe, because I think of Europe as being as advanced as America is in those. Because I talk to so many psychics from the UK, especially the UK, Scotland, Ireland. They're
But that's a bit different. It's a bit different. But for example, Joe Dispenza, he was supposed to come to France, and someone went. They wrote in this big magazine this horrible article, and he had to cancel. He had to cancel because he was talking about healing. That's to show you how it is. So especially for humans, especially alternative medicine for humans it's actually, my editor, he told me last year, he said, you know what? They actually passed a law saying that it's illegal now. Natural medicine is considered illegal. They're just not going to stop people from doing it. But if someone complains about something, that person could get in trouble. I mean, it's really,
And that's in the EU, or it's in just a specific country?
it's mainly France, maybe other countries of the EU. Spain has eased off. Spain is better now. It wasn't at one point. Now it's better. I lived a lot in Spain. And what is strange is that those are countries that they really have a very big tradition of homeopathics, herbal medicine. I mean, it's really present, but that's also why it's trying to be repressed. Such a shame.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I see a lot of past lives for clients that are in the French countryside in a field of lavender or something. They're walking
Yes.
through a
Yeah.
field of lavender, or
Yes.
they're doing something with herbs and flowers and things like that as a healer. Yeah.
It
So
was very much part of the tradition. So Germany is better. Germany and Switzerland are much more open. They have a lot of natural medicine there. Germany is very advanced, and Switzerland too. But France was, homeopathics and all. But people now, they have, it has to go through the pharmacies now. It's different.
In human medicine, because I was in that industry for 30 years as an inventor and
Yes.
manufacturer of
Wow.
surgical devices, Germany was always one of the front runners. They would come up with the new techniques, the new devices, the new instruments, and they would be used there for a number of years, even before they were approved for use here. So Germany very much in the human medicine when I was in that industry was on the forefront of developing things. Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
And now they're very advanced, like in quantum things.
Mhm.
They have there's a lot of inventions, very interesting in Germany. Yeah, they're very advanced with that. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, well, speaking of France, you've worked with the French national team of competition horses, competitive horses, and internationally, you work with some of the most renowned equestrians in the world. So tell us about that. If it's so scorched in France, how are you able or how were you able to do that? And how do you get around that now? Maybe not necessarily healing, but so they're okay if you just communicate with the animals, but not if you try and heal them?
So I never talk about healing. It's really word of mouth for me. So people just call me. I never talk about it necessarily in public in France, but the communication, what happened is I was the pioneer there. So there was like really no one. I mean, there was one woman who was doing a little bit, but I'm really considered the reference, at least in France, and the pioneer. I started everything. And I was going with my little backpack, going to equestrian centers, talking. And then there's this woman who met me in one of the lectures, and she became a major opener in my life. I adore her. Her name is Catherine, and she was in the east of France. She brought me to her equestrian center, and that's where everyone was saying, she's a sect, she's a sect. What is this stuff?" Everyone was against her and me. And so one day, the people from they had to stay at the center for overnight, the Équipe Nationale de France. So they came with the big horses, these big competition horses. Like they're really, really impressive. you know, and she introduced me to them, and so then we sat at dinner, and they started asking me questions. So I told them stuff, and I told them stuff about the horses, and they believed me because I had no way of knowing certain things, and that's also when I met this big horseman who's half Cheyenne, half Italian, and he was there too, Patrick Aiori. So of course, the fact that he gave me credit, that helped also, and that was a wonderful, because it was very difficult to open the horse world. It's very closed. So it was beautiful, wonderful. I do less of that now because I got tired of working with competition horses that I help them, they earn a prize, and then they're still mistreated,
How are they mistreated?
It's, oh, they do horrible things with horses. They do horrible things. So, first of all, they're locked up all the time. They don't have freedom. They're taken out 1 hour a day. There's a lot of mistreatment. They do things, for example, like they put the ball, like for the ones who do jumping competition. So it's called barré. I don't know the words in English, but it's called barré, which means the bar. So, for example, they put it at a certain height. So the horse sees the height and is going to jump at that height. And then at the last minute, they bring it down. So it hits him in the anterior legs very harshly. And he has a lot of pain. So then what happens is that they do that so that next time he jumps higher. They do all kinds. If I start telling you the horrible things they do put prickly things that painful into the hooves. They do all kinds of horrible things. It's just awful.
Just to try and get them to
Just for
behave in a
competition's
certain way
sake.
for
Yeah.
competition. Yeah. How about race horses? Have you worked with any race horses?
So much less. And I was very surprised that I was worked less. So it looks like that might be even more closed. But I was really surprised because at the beginning, I don't think I have that ability anymore. And I would never use it for money, ever. Like I would never use the ability to say this one is going to win, you can make that amount of money. But what I could say is who was in a certain type of fit condition that maybe he could win better, like a mental condition and a physical condition. And I could also tune into you can do that too. I know you can. I could tune into the one who's on the horse, the rider, to know more things. But I would never, ever, I mean, that's not ethical. So I would never do that.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I've been to the Kentucky Derby several times and I don't ever win any money when I'm there. And my Hills don't work in Vegas either. I'm not a gambler anyways, but I've played with it, and it's just not what it's intended to do. But when I asked the question about the racehorses, I meant, have you communicated with the horses themselves to see what they have to say?
Yes, yes. So most of the race horses I've worked with is usually horses that have done the races before, and that are either they're going to send them to, how do you say, to the slaughterhouse, and then someone adopts them at the last minute, or they're going to send to some retirement place, or they're sold. So the ones I've spoken to, I mean, spoken, let's say, communicated with, 'cause it's not really speaking. They've usually already experienced that, and it's not good. I mean, they're really messed up. They're really messed up.
The racehorses are. Well, or they'll breed them. If they're a champion, yeah, they'll breed them. And so many racehorses are euthanized from what I understand.
Yeah, once they can't do anymore, they could be euthanized or used for other purposes unless people adopt them. And I noticed that almost all of them, well, first of all, they have physical issues because it's just too much. So there's a lot of issues, with tendons, ligaments, even bones. If they start too young, a lot of them they receive, all kinds of injections, even if it's illegal. And so they're messed up physically and mentally. It's disaster. It takes a long time to bring them back, their spirit back into the body and properly.
Wow. So you don't suggest going and getting a racehorse as a pet?
Well, no, I think it's wonderful to save someone's life. I think, every single life that one can save is just fantastic. Every tiny little act of kindness is fantastic. But then the person is going to have to be more patient and know that it's going to take time to bring them back.
When you say it takes time to bring their spirit back, talk more about that. Like their spirits out of their body, or their spirits maybe attached onto their head, or they're just spooked all the time because they're super jittery, or what do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, there could be many types of physical symptoms. So there could be either illness because they're not doing well, or constant limping, laminitis, all kinds of things. It could be jittery, spooking, fear, all kinds of other, more emotional things. So the expression, the spirit out of the body, it was this Native American man who was a very big horseman that I was lucky to work with. And he used that expression. So it would be a more Native American expression. And he would say the spirit is gone from the body, and he was able to put the exact words of what I used to perceive, and I didn't have the way of expressing it. And it's as if they dissociate because there's just too much trauma. So it's like the spirit is not really in the body. I mean, I know it sounds a bit esoteric, but it's a good expression. It's like they're not really fully there. They're not present. They're not. Their eyes are half dead, and they're not there. You know.
Well, I think humans do that when they're abused as well. I've heard of
Yes,
many cases
absolutely.
of that, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, disconnecting. Yes,
Okay, let's change
yeah.
directions for a minute here. You have talked to many spirits of animals for communication with their humans. That's what my daughter-in-law, Dr. Mao, calls the clients her patients are the animals, their owners are the humans, which I love. So, are there some things that you find that are common when an animal spirit is communicating with its owner? Do you find that they like to communicate certain things, or are there any commonalities in what they want to say to their owners?
So, okay, so usually the first thing that happens is guilt. I mean, guilt is major.
Mm.
So, so the first part that we always work on is the passage, like what happened, either the euthanasia or the accident. You have horrible accidents, like the cat that dies in the pool. There's been a lot of those drowning cases. The rabbit that the guy closes the sofa and the rabbit is inside. I mean, horrible things. So the guilt is tremendous. So usually the first part of those type of, I call them connections, which you do also. I know you do it, and is like dealing with their guilt.
The
And then
owner's
what I
guilt, the human's guilt
yeah,
you're
the
talking about,
human's guilt.
right?
Yeah, because for them it's just awful. Like even and they all have guilt, even if the animal is like 15 years old and he has a cancer and they have to do the euthanasia and they know they have to do it, even then they have guilt. So, we all Judeo-Christian culture here with like tons of guilt. So it comes out. It comes out eventually. No, we can't help it. So we do try to deal with that. And then what the beautiful part is when often I get other animals, same as you get when you do people and then you get animals that show up. So I get other animals that show up. They just go, hi, I'm here, and they can recognize them. And I think it gives people peace, relief, peace, and a sense of a completion. I think it helps them. So animals really what the main thing they always want to transmit is I'm okay, I'm not suffering, I'm happy, and I love you, So it's, of course, it's very simple, but it's the fact that it comes with descriptions and things that helps people.
Yeah. I get a lot that I'm around you too. And
Yes, exactly.
you think you
Yeah.
see me or hear me or feel me. Yes, you are. And we just discount it and we think, oh, that's just my imagination, but it's not. They're really there.
And they get amazing signs. Some people, I mean, I never got that, not fair. But I get people, they go out and they have tons of white feathers, or things that show up that are like just absolutely incredible, that are just not possible. And they know it's not possible. So, I mean, I had a woman, and is going to go in my next book. So she has a white horse that passed with a colic, really early and very difficult with a lot of pain and all that. And I can't remember how much time I have it written down, but she goes for a walk, and she finds a little white horse on the floor, in a little plastic white horse. I mean, unbelievable things like that just so beautiful.
Right. Right. Well, you're not getting signs because your animal spirits know that you can communicate with them at any time that you want.
I know, but it still pisses me off.
Ask them for a sign.
Like my dog who passed at 19. I mean, I would have liked to have my cat gave a sign to my son, but not to me.
Well, so ask them
Yeah.
to give you a sign.
I will.
Give
Yes,
them
that's a good idea. I
and
do
give
think
them
of that.
something specific that you wanna
Yeah.
see.
Yes.
They'll send it to you. You just gotta
Yes.
ask.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
know how good you are at this woo-woo stuff, so they figure that, that you can talk to them anytime you want, but yeah, just
I mean, when
ask.
I ask for a sign for above, I always ask for a sign in the form of an animal that is not a usual animal. I always ask for that, and I get it. Like something completely impossible. That's not the usual, like, of course, not like the dog or the cat that shows up, and I get those. That's when I ask for them. I'm like, I need to know that you're really here.
So give us an example of something that was impossible that showed up.
So, yeah, so I had one, I was in Hawaii, and I was like going through this whole inner turmoil, those things, questioning and all this night of the soul kind of thing. And I remember we went somewhere where there was this cliff, and I said, I need to know that you're here. I want a sign, and I want something that's not usual. So then we go on the beach, and there's like a bunch of horses on the beach. And I'm like, yeah, but that's still, this is the doubter. I love the horses. I'm super happy. It's beautiful. Thank you, thank you. But it's not quite unusual, So I say that. So then we go, and I'm with this friend. And she has a boyfriend who's American, and she's French. And we take a car and we go into this other area of Hawaii, and we're in the car, and there's this little wild hog baby, adorable, that's right in front of the car, and I'm like, I get struck, in my heart, and I'm like, there's my sign, because that was like, there's no way a little baby wild hog is going to show up on the road all alone, because usually they're more up in the wild areas, So there, I got my sign.
Oh, I love it. And I think the important thing too is you knew that was your sign.
Yes, I knew it.
Yeah. And I think we
Yes.
all know.
We all know. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's when there's an impact in your heart. That's when people know. They say, I saw this thing in the clouds. So someone is going to say, yeah, it's just a sign in the clouds. Doesn't mean anything. It's just cloud formation. But the person sees that form in the cloud that looks like their dog, I mean, I've seen pictures, like incredible.
I
They
have
really
too.
look like their dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, same thing. One of my favorite ones is a client who's a truck driver, this like big kind of gruff guy who didn't believe in any woo-woo, wasn't spiritual or religious or any of that. I think somebody gave him a gift of a session with me, and so we were talking, and we were doing health stuff, and I was nailing stuff, and he's like, "Well, maybe there is something to this." And then he told me this story, Lila. He said, "I was driving, I stopped to get gas. I was sitting in my cab, my window was open, and this hummingbird came in and landed on my steering wheel and just sat there and looked at me." And he said, out of my mouth came, he said, "I didn't even think about this, but out of my mouth came, 'Mom, is that you?'" And he said the hummingbird tilted its head and looked at him for another several seconds and then flew out the window. He said, "I've never told anybody this but you, but I think that was my mom that had sent that hummingbird." And I said, "You bet it was, and you knew it."
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's beautiful. You must get such amazing stories, but it's also because people trust you and they can open up to you.
it's
You know,
so fun
they
to
must.
hear, and you just think and you tell your people too, there are no coincidences. If it's that first thought that comes into your head,
Yes,
pay attention
exactly.
with that. That's it. And then we go try and overanalyze the crap out of it, and
Yes.
when we have the answer the whole time, right? And with you, we have the answer the whole time. It's like it's that first thought that comes in your head. Do you think you've lived in other dimensions?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we
Don't.
all have?
I think we all have. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure because this other group of beings that I was able to be in contact with, I mean, the love is just unbelievable. And so when you feel that and you know them, then that means that you've been with them at some other point.
Okay. So again, you're putting out a tease. Tell us about the other beings that you've run into or
Yeah.
with whom you've communicated.
Yes. I kind of gave a few little words once in a while, like little words in Europe. So I started getting these experiences. I think my children, so now they're 35. I go by the age of my kids because I have no sense of time. And I think they were 14 at the time, 13, 14. And I started getting these experiences, which actually all started in Yellowstone,
Oh,
believe it
wow.
or not.
Oh,
So
that place is amazing.
it's incredible, that place. And it's very long, so I don't want to take up all the time and talk for 5 hours. But it started off in Yellowstone, where I got this incredible experience. I started getting this feeling. Something came like inside me, this strong energy. My back, I couldn't move my hands, and there was a wolf. Then I understood what the wolf was right next to me, looking in my eyes. It was an incredible experience. And it started there. And then after that experience, I'm shortening it because it's too long. I started getting like trances, like 7 times a day. And my kids had to feed me because I couldn't touch anything with my hands. There was so much energy. It was like that. My poor kids, they had to feed me.
Trance is
Um,
in the form of you just would, like, lose consciousness in a trance?
I would just like kind of like go like that, like go into this other space with just first it started off with just like this darkness, but this peace and beauty. But then it started turning into what I call visitations. And so it was, I would be in my room, for example, at night. I had it for 2 full years nonstop. And it was like as if someone put the light on in my room. I could feel it coming before. It was like as if it would fill it with light, the whole room. Incredible. And then I would feel the presence. And I would usually say, wait, I have to go to the toilet before you come. So I would run to the toilet and I would go pee real fast because I knew it would take a while. I would come back, sit on my bed, and I would like fall like this, like flat, like boom, like that, and this love in my heart, like this ecstasy, this bliss, so powerful, and these beings, the beauty, and I could hear so incredibly well. That was 2 years,
What did they
all the
look
time.
like?
I couldn't see them. It was like this. It was made like of light with like, how to explain? It's very hard to put in words. It's like you feel like there's this form made of colored light a bit. and it kind of looks a bit like a human form, but it's not. And very, very big, and there was many different ones. And the truth that comes with it, the truth is, because like here you feel like there's many different truths, but when they come, it's like one truth. And the love that is beyond any love I've experienced, even beyond the animals, just unbelievable. And then it completely stopped. It was horrible. The night of the soul completely stopped. That's why I got these doubting moments. And then it came back in the form of smaller visits. I call them visits, not like those big ecstasy one, but it came back. And then when we got into the COVID phase, then it completely stopped. And I haven't had anything since. And it's horrible for me to live like this.
Do you think that they were from a different planet or galaxy, or do you think a different reality, or what do you think they were?
I mean, you see, I would like to do a session with someone like you
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
know more,
We
because
can do
really
that.
this is,
Yeah, we can do
yeah,
that.
I was thinking of that because for me, it wasn't a different planet. It's definitely another dimension that for some reason, I was able to have access to. I mean, they are beings, they're incredibly advanced. It's just, and they're not from another planet, because I know that there's beings from other planets that are incredibly advanced, but it was not, and I don't think they've been on this planet. It doesn't seem that like they've been here in a physical form, because the level of love is, I mean, just unbelievable. You can't even put a word to it.
So do
There's
you
just
think you
no,
went to them, or they came to you,
no,
or
they definitely came to me.
they came to
Oh,
you
complete. Yeah.
on Earth?
Oh, completely. Because when it started, like when I was getting those trances and all of that, so I mean, I was like, what's going on? I mean, I couldn't understand, even though there was love, and I did feel trusting. And I talked to the spirit doctors. And at the beginning, they said, oh, it's your energy. And I was like, no, this is definitely not my energy, because I'm in France eating something really good, and all of a sudden, the presence is coming and I can't eat anymore. So no, this is like the really best cheese in France. And why is this? Who is it? What is it? And they said, this is your energy. And 6 months later, they came to me, they said, we know who they are. They're from another dimension that we can't access, because we're from another dimension and we're not in touch with those other dimensions. But because we are both here to help you, that's what they told me, we were able, after 6 months, to connect with them. And the only thing we want you to know is that they are beings of light and you mustn't be afraid. That's what they told me. And the main one that comes, she is more like a bit more feminine. The feeling is feminine. There's different ones. They call her La Madonna.
Oh,
Because see,
wow.
they're from Mexico, so we speak Spanish when I go. So they say La Madonna. I don't know. All I know is it's pure love. That's all I know.
Here's what I'm getting right off the top of my head is they were there with you to give you a frequency upgrade. They were raising your vibrational levels so that you could access more advanced frequencies, higher frequencies in dimensions that we haven't yet recognized as human. And so it's part of your journey in this lifetime to be able to access those advanced frequencies to do the work that you're being called to do, much of which you haven't experienced yet. You've got a lot ahead of you that's coming, but you're going to need to be able to access those different, not necessarily higher, but different frequencies. It's almost like they gave you the update so that you'd have the software that would be able to connect into that and access that whole dimension and those frequencies for not only sharing love and healing, but to do the work that you're here to do. And what I just heard too, Laila, was that all this stuff that you've done so far has just been practice for what's ahead. And I think you know that. You know
Yeah, I
that.
do.
Yeah.
Oh my God, thank you. Sorry. You're amazing, Julie.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what
I mean,
I'm
I'm really
that's what
saying
I'm
it from my
hearing.
heart.
Yeah.
Amazing being.
That's what I'm
And
hearing.
the spirit doctors, they told me, they said, they said when I was getting all the experiences and the burn in my heart, like liquid gold going in my head, all these weird things happening, earthquakes, all that. And they said, think of it as an apple, and the little worm is making its way, which is exactly what you said. It has to go in and out. But you see, the thing is, my son is also started receiving. He has the same thing. We're very close with my children. We're from the same group, I think. Sorry, I apologize. I'm crying because it's so beautiful what you said.
Yeah, no apology necessary.
I have no idea how to go forward because for the moment, there's nothing going on. It's just emptiness, void.
Well, it's because your body's getting used to holding the frequency and you don't have to do anything because you're going to be led. So when the time comes, you'll just know it and you won't even think about it. It's kind of like when you get into a pool and it's really cold and your body gets used to the temperature and then you can stay in there, if you go ahead and bite the bullet and dunk, and then you take that shock of that cold water, and then your body adjusts to the temperature. I'm getting that's what your body is doing. So, time doesn't exist in the spirit world. So what seems like a long time to you as nothing's happened, you're getting used to holding that high vibration, and I I think you're gonna have more experiences like that where
Yes.
your frequency is gonna continue to be raised.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, because the doctors, the spirits, they taught me how to channel. And they said, I remember that was 20 years ago. They said, well, she might come or she might not come. So just try. So I tried with my other son. So we're all three of us very much into this thing. And we started practicing. And she was coming in the body. It took me a whole year before I could get fully in the body. This presence, this feminine presence, beautiful. And when she was coming, especially at the beginning, she would cry like of compassion, but it was like water coming out of my eyes, like just falling. But now it's less. I don't know what's happening since COVID. I can still do it, but I feel it's not quite the same. So I'm waiting. I just stopped.
Well, because your human body's gotten used to it. So the crying was your body reacting to this higher frequency is what I'm getting. The other thing that I got that's really I think this is a really important point for you is the Madonna presence that you're feeling is what I heard was it's your version of the Lady in the Lake from Arthurian legend.
Yes, yes, yes.
Remember, Merlin they'd all go see the Lady in the Lake, and
Yeah.
that certainly is symbolic for the Madonna energy, and what I heard was, "This is your Lady in the Lake."
Wow. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah, yeah, the feminine is so many traditions. I love that story, by the way.
I do too. I do
It's a
too.
very good
And
example. I love it.
last question, why do we incarnate?
Oh my God, I have no idea. Well, I guess, I mean, I bet you know more than me about that. I'm sure you know more. Um, I don't know. I think we're supposed to experience things here. Why? I have no idea. I mean, I'm not exactly loving this incarnation. I can't say. Um, I find it extremely difficult, this dimension. But I guess we're supposed to experience and learn.
Well, you are so lovely and magical and fascinating and darling that how can people learn more about you and your work?
They just have to go. So there's a movie, there's a documentary that was made. It's in English, it's in YouTube, and it's called Connecting with Animals. So people can look at that.
And you're the
They can go to my
star.
web.
You're the star of the documentary.
Yes, yes. We did it in France, in Germany, and Italy. We did 3 countries. And it was really a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's done very Cartesian because it was for European public. So there's that. Then there's the website, lailadelmonte.com. It's Laila mainly. And yeah, that's basically the best way to find out, I think, because there's not many books in English. There's only one book in English. All the books, they're all in French and Spanish, and a few in Italian.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah.
Well, for those bilingual people, they can read them or they can someday maybe you'll get them translated into
Yes,
English.
I'm planning on doing English especially the one on the afterlife, because it helps people.
Mhm.
It helps people because people grieve so much,
Yeah, I agree. All righty. Well, everybody, we've given you lots to think about here with this discussion. So in the meantime, sending you lots of love from Sweet Home, Alabama. Mwah! And from California too, where Laila is. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your family and friends.